Welcome back to another episode of Industry Talk with Brandon Andre, and I'm here with,
Tyrone Smithers.
and we're in Paris today doing a podcast, and I'm really excited. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your age, and what agency you're with here.
I'm 26 and I'm here with Mademoiselle, and I've been here living here for 2 years after moving from New York.
So, how long have you been modeling for?
I've been in fashion industry for 10 years since I was 16. And I mean, it's completely different now with laws and everything, but yeah, it's been probably too long.
And you're from not Paris, though. You're not French, right? You're from Canada.
Yeah, I'm from Toronto.
So, how did you make your way over here?
So I've been coming to Europe since I was 16, going to Milan and Paris and London, usually just for Fashion Week or for a month or two. And after living in New York for 5 years, the pandemic happened and I just felt like I needed to change. So I wanted to reestablish myself back in Europe. So I packed up everything and came here.
How was the transition moving from New York to Paris, a European city and market?
So I picked Paris because probably it's the most similar to New York in the way that they do things in speed, but it's still relaxed enough for you to have peace and enjoy yourself. And it's kind of like a central hub, so you can bounce around to all of the other nearby countries quite easily versus having to travel 6 hours from New York to go to Milan, to go to Spain, to go to London. It's 1 hour to get anywhere. So the transition from moving from New York to here I found to be quite easy because I was already spending a lot of time in Europe each year.
Now, you choosing to move here, was it a move like I want to build more of a fashion look towards my modeling career? Or, a lot of people, when they think about Paris, they think of like the fashion center of the world. They think of fashion weeks and all high-end top fashion models. What was your mindset coming into this market, and what's the difference between how it was when you were in New York?
So the way I thought coming into this market was I wanted to rebrand myself and yes, do a bit more fashion editorial and rebuild myself into more fashion like when I was younger. But what people don't know about Paris is it is quite commercial, not in the American sense, but in every beauty brand, hair brand, perfume, they're all here. So usually they do book from other cities and they'll fly you in, but they have a massive commercial market also. So it's not just fashion. People just hyper fixate on the fashion week because of how much coverage it's getting.
Can you name some of the brands that are in Paris that you work with a lot and that models could expect to work with a lot here on a regular basis, not just on a fashion week basis?
So typically, if you're going to work with someone on a regular basis, you're going to need either an e-com client or kind of like someone who is selling multiple brands. So you could do like Gemma or Galerie Lafayette. They sell multiple brands, so they have they have products to shoot all of the time. Versus a fashion brand, which maybe they have e-com or lookbooks, but they have once they shoot it, it's kind of done for the next 3-4 months. So I think what's really important, if you want stability and you're not living pretty much based on campaigns and lookbooks and flying around every 2-3 weeks to different markets, is you need a good e-com client that is paying the bill. It's not necessarily going to do the career image work that you want or that you're going to show people, but it's going to keep your rent paid, food on the table, spending money, and it's consistent.
Now, how does editorial play into all this?
So, I mean, at the end of the day, you do need to do kind of everything. No model really does everything, but you need to constantly be shooting and producing stuff because once you're not seen, you're not seen, you're not thought of. You're not going to be really marketed that often because once you've not done an editorial or a lookbook or a campaign for a long enough time where the people in fashion, the clients, the photographers, casting directors, they're not seeing what you're shooting, you're going to kind of die out. So you need to do editorials or creatives to a certain level, or if obviously when they're magazines as much as possible, just to keep yourself in a circulation and keep yourself in the public eye.
So would you say that that means that people here want to see that you're busy doing something, and if you're stagnant, not doing anything, you're kind of like looked at as if, oh, no one wants to work with them?
Yeah, it's basically that, because once you're stagnant, I mean, yes, it might not be your season, or you might be in like a transitional period of your hair is not the right length, or something with your look is changing. But also they don't, from the magazines and the editorials that you're doing, they can see how you shoot and how you pose and how you are on set as like a little sample, versus someone that they don't really or can't really see anything about if you don't have a well-developed or current book.
Does social media content creation look like someone is working, or does it have to be photo shoots and like actual jobs? Like, would you say that there's a difference between having content that you're consistently posting on social media, that's what makes a model look interesting and like they're active, or does it specifically have to be test shoots, editorials, e-com jobs, campaigns, fashion shows, or even like sponsorships if they do like a brand deal or something like that? Like, what is perceived as legitimate fashion work versus content?
So a sponsorship can count, and what a lot of people don't realize is brands will hire you just for, and it will say in the contract to your agency, for social media content. So you're doing a full shoot with a team for social media, but you posting your outfits or what you're doing in the free time, yes, that shows that you're not dead and you're alive and well, but you're not working still. And you have free time to do all of this kind of stuff because you're not working. And if you are going to post content like that, it should be on set or something involving work, whether you're at maybe a fashion event, some like you're sponsored by the brand, not so much personal life.
Right. Now, this seems like it's like indirect knowledge. What is like a direct scenario in which what you're telling me and us is like, you're like, oh, now I can verify that that's a thing here in Paris?
Okay, so a few things that can happen also when that happens, like the agents will usually call you in because they've been submitting you and no one is
Fighting.
taking you. No one is even offering you the casting, let alone being booked. So after a while, they're going to call you in and they're going to try to think of how they can rebrand or what's wrong or what could be done differently. And what most people do, and it's probably sad, but if it goes on long enough, they'll drop you. Like, they're not gonna keep investing time on someone who isn't working, or they don't see that if the market does change, you are going to work. They see it more stuck at a stagnant place.
Now, is that necessarily something that's strictly Paris, or isn't that like every agency in the world?
So it's kind of every agency in the world. Of course, some agents, they care more about your social presence than others, and some countries care more about your social presence than others. Paris wants to know, I think, kind of that you are wanted or you're in an interest, at least to some clients. Like, no one is going to be kind of, no model is really going to have every client. It's you don't fit all the boxes. No one fits all the boxes. But if every client is saying no, and it's been 2 or 3 seasons and all you're doing is kind of posting, it's not going to mean a lot to them, no matter how much success that you have on social media, because they need to make money.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is in the model's control. Does that mean that said model should be collaborating with photographers to produce high-level editorial-looking test shoots to appear like they're like working more? And then another thought that comes to mind too is, brands get a link to your portfolio and they look through your books. So if they're looking through your books every couple of weeks and it just looks the same, I think that's when they tell that, okay, they're not working or they're not doing anything interesting beyond just like your Instagram. It's that your book needs to be updated. But then I also start thinking like how many agents are actually on top of all of their models' portfolios, because sometimes I'll see that models are doing test shoots or they're booking stuff and they just haven't updated their book. And I'm just like, what's going on? Like, there's models, books, there's portfolios of models where their images are still there from like 6 years ago. And I'm like, this is really weird. I wouldn't think that that's a thing that is smart to do.
No, I mean, that's its own issue where the booker is not doing their job. Usually in Paris and in Europe, because it's fast paced enough, everyone is kind of on top of it. But if your book hasn't been updated in 6 years, it's also on the model to tell their agent, like, I've done these, can we update my book? I don't look like that anymore. I'm not that age. I don't present the same. I've done all of this. And yes, if you aren't working as being paid, you should be trying to set up shoots with photographers or your own projects that are in a sense professional. Not everything has to be paid. At the end, magazines, they're not really paid anymore. So if you can set up things with photographers, at least, even though it's a test and it's not work, it looks professional and it does count to them as working.
Especially if it's good and high level. How often do you test? Because you've been modeling for 10 years.
Yeah.
So you already have somewhat of a name, right? You've been in this market for almost 3 years. So how do you approach your specific, where you're at as a model? Do you test as often? Like what's your kind of strategy?
So the way I kind of go about it is, I spoke with you before you arrived here, is like, testing is great. There's hundreds of magazines, and once you have kind of learned enough, and you'll know that all magazines kind of take submissions, especially the online magazines. And if your test is good enough, you can submit the test to be published. So then at least the test turns into a published editorial. And if you're not from America, that's a tear sheet to help you get a visa or something. You should be kind of putting in as maximum effort into your test shoots to look as professional as possible.
What do you think the reason why models don't put in the best effort for their test shoots?
A lot of models don't know how to do their job, and they kind of expect the agency to do not only the bulk of the work, but all of the work, where models believe that their job is to show up and to do the job, not what goes on outside of the set. When in reality, you still need to be meeting people. You still need to be trying to set up your own connections, because at the end of the day, your agents are only so much, like, they have the contacts, but it's not to say, like, at all, they're managing sometimes 200 to 500 people. So sometimes you do need to put in a little bit of effort. And if you can meet someone organically on the street and showcase yourself in a cool way, or a way that makes you seem interesting, that person is going to remember you more than, oh, I've seen like a 9:8 picture with backlight on a computer. They're not seeing you in person, and not everyone has time to do in-person castings.
In Paris specifically, what is the game plan that you kind of had when you came here? You know, you rebranded, and rebranding in Paris means more editorial, more fashion-based imagery. How would you compare your experience in New York, the type of work you were getting, the type of brand you were there, to here and who you are now that you've been here for almost 3 years?
So I do find Paris to be more relaxed in a way, because there is seasonal work and there is constant work. Seasonal work is things like Fashion Week, where all of a sudden 2,000 models are in the city. It's really busy. You do Fashion Week, and it's quick, it's over, it's done very fast, 4 times a year, other than couture and bridal, but 4 times a year. And then in New York, clients they're kind of more engaged. Like, they will have time. The level of campaign is different. New York is shooting a lot, all of the time. And they have a broader range of casting, because kind of when models are not American, the level of a model that you have to be in New York is much higher versus Europe, where you could be brand new. And it could be your first time. You've done 2 shoots, but somehow you're in Paris, you're in Milan, you're in London off 2 shoots. Versus New York, where if you're not from there, you have to have a couple of years or a solid amount of experience to work. So
and that's just because of the visa, just to work there, by the way, for those of you guys who don't understand why you said that.
There's probably the same amount of opportunity in a way, but working in Paris, you have access to all the other markets at the same time. And things are a bit like calmer here, where in New York, like, obviously because of the price of things, you're in a state where you constantly need to be working, and if you aren't working, it's not really the market for you if you're not pulling in a job every month. Even that is a stretch. Like, it should be every week or so. In Paris, you could probably get by working one or two jobs a month, sometimes even less, depending on the situation. And if so, you can always pop by a different country to work.
That's what's interesting is that I'm thinking like, is modeling in Europe seen, especially like in Paris, kind of cumulatively with working in all markets in Europe, and that's kind of like the benefit of working somewhere in Paris is that you have access to all these markets. Whereas in New York, where you don't get to tap into multiple markets, but you can kind of make what you would make in multiple different markets in Europe in one city by living in New York, would you say?
I mean, if you're good enough at your job, but a lot of models that work in Paris typically they live outside of Paris. Like, there are a lot of models that live here, but they can live in Amsterdam because it's a 1 hour ride away. You can live in a random town in Germany, like Hamburg or something, where you can be here very quickly. Versus anything in New York where you have to fly in a couple hours. They need to have a travel budget, and in Europe, even the model can cover the travel budget on their own, where it's worth the difference. So you definitely have a lot more opportunity while working in Europe to expand to other markets and have more pull of, like, if you want to shoot with certain photographers, you can book a day and fly there. You can set stuff up. You can visit your agencies, even though they're in different markets, and keep the relationship with them versus having to plan to see them once a year, once every 2 years if you aren't in that market. And in New York, like, you're based in New York, you can fly out for a job if they're paying, but you don't have as much easy accessibility to other markets.
Now, let's talk about cost of living as we're on that topic of the two different, cities. Cost of living in Paris as a model, how did that differ from living in New York?
So New York is like 3-4 times the prices of Paris. Paris is honestly, everyone gets mad when I say it's cheap, but it is cheap when you come from living in New York. And what is higher here versus New York is the tax situation. So it seems a bit higher, but in Paris, you can have a much more comfortable time and live a little bit more stress-free than in New York, because of the time that, like, the turnover of when agencies pay. In New York, it's very much 90 days to be paid. In Paris, it's a month. But yeah, like, the turnaround of how quickly people pay you, it's also kind of the difference of New York versus LA, and LA being like 2 weeks and New York being 90 days. And to budget your money 90 days ahead of time is not always the easiest, because it's not a kind of career where things can be consistent. Sometimes there's periods where you don't work. So sometimes the 90-day stretch of New York makes things really complicated versus Paris, where, once you do a job, you have 30 days before you're going to be paid to cover whatever expenses that you have.
Now, I know now you mentioned that you do fashion styling on the side, but before then, and just comparing all models that here in Paris, are they all only doing modeling, or do they have some side jobs?
So most models here do have a side job, or once they've been in the industry long enough, they pick up a side job, whether it's always something in fashion, whether it's promoting, design, PR, styling, makeup. Honestly, like, people here are quite friendly when it comes to the fashion world, where they will give you a chance once you can showcase, yeah, I can do this. And if you're willing to shoot test shoots and creative projects, they always want people who are open to that, versus countries where, yes, everyone needs to be paid, but there's places now that if no one is being paid, no one's working. So here, you have a lot more opportunity to
Collaborate,
get a start and build relationships with a client by collaboration when you try like a branch off into the fashion.
The reason why I asked that is because in New York, I feel like most models do have to have a side job. It's like you can't just really like live off of modeling. You have to like have a side job and then like you're modeling. And very few people, I think, in the States can, like, especially when you're living in LA or New York can afford to live off of just like what they make from modeling, which is why like that 90 days, usually in the States, they're working other jobs outside of modeling. Here you're saying like sometimes they do, but when you're new, you probably should come with savings at least if you're going to break into this market. Now, we talked earlier before we started this about the percentage that agencies take and then the percentage of taxes you pay here. So let's kind of unpack that so that people can kind of understand what you're looking to.
Exact number.
It's
So
like,
I
let me
exaggerate.
pull up ChatGPT real quick.
Oh, I know how much I've earned, but when it comes to saving it,
what you put, what's split to the government versus what your agency takes versus what you profit versus like your gross income and your net. Do you know any of those things?
personal income tax range is 0 to 45% based on typical earning, and the agency here would take 70, but then
7-0, you guys. They take so okay, and we kind of use this using the example of $1,000 job. So with $1,000, the client pays for you.
yeah.
Let's unpack.
Not like New York where minus the agency fees, like 700, 1,000, you remove that 70% from your statement.
And that 70% goes to
Your agency and your, I think, government tax or federal tax.
and but how much of that goes to the agency?
I would say probably, honestly, most likely it's probably anywhere from 25 to 35% that they're probably earning at the end. I might be wrong about this, but it's something like that.
How don't you know that specific number?
Well, because they go into things like in Paris, the tax comes out because it will pay your health insurance. It will pay your, if you plan to retire here and you do file your tax in France, you can claim it back. But that's if you choose to file it. Most people, when you're not from Europe or not from here, they're not choosing to file their tax here. But I mean, if you do, you get some of it back.
That's from someone who's watching this from the States. That sounds like horrible. You're telling me that if you make $1,000, 70% of that is taken away and you're left with $300. Why would anybody want to come to here? Why would anybody come here to make money if that's the case? Model wise.
Well, again, when people come to Paris, they typically think of Fashion Week. And yeah, Fashion Week is kind of when you're new to modeling and that's your dream, is to be seen walking like the biggest shows instead of campaigns and stuff that actually pays the bills. You think of Fashion Week, and Fashion Week is not going to pay your bills. You'll probably break even for what you spend during your trip, because at the end of doing Fashion Week, you're going to have to pay where you stay, your show week package, transportation, flight.
What's a show week package?
Today's podcast is brought to you by me, Brandon Andre. If you're a model who wants to become a working model, then you need to enroll in my Model Masterclass today. In my online class, I teach models how to make more money by showing them how to manage their careers as a business. From getting signed, to building a portfolio that gets you jobs, to building an audience on TikTok and Instagram, then monetizing it, to learning how to win the favor from your agents and casting directors, to learning how to brand yourself on social media, and how to lure in brands and brand deals to increase your income as a model. Getting signed doesn't mean you'll get work, but learning how to run a business does. So enroll in my Model Masterclass now by going to my website at brandonandrephoto.com.
So a show week package is what the agencies send out to clients and casting directors when it's Fashion Week, and it shows the models that they have in town, but that is something that you're charged for. It's different than all the models they represent. It is a special package with special comp cards that just says he's in town. If usually it's for people who are not living in that city, but you can still be included. It differs agency to agency. I've seen it 50. I've seen it $200. Yeah,
or euros. So you're telling me that an agency whose job it is to get their models work charges their models to use a tool that helps get their models work?
Well, the show packages are things that are going to be on models.com as the SS25 show package, stuff like that. They're still going to send the models to the castings at the end. Like, they're going to say this person's in town, they're available, but then there is the separate of being included in the show package, which usually, again, comp cards change. It's honestly the same as if you're in town and they just send, yeah, we have this profile, do you like them?
I'm still not understanding the show package
Because
concept.
there's nothing to understand about it. It's the same as submitting anyways.
Do they have that in New York, in the States, or is that the European?
Yeah.
They charge in New York for a show package?
They have it everywhere that it's Fashion Week constantly.
I have to ask an agent about this. I've never heard of a charge for a show package for a special link. Is it a link?
I honestly,
here's-
it's...
What's the difference between that and Portfolio Pad and just sending these brands just like your portfolio link that they do for jobs and everything else?
Again, I think it's just, these are the models that they've chose to be in town. Maybe it will be 20 to 25 people in their agency that they're forwarding to the client. And it's just like their version of the package. So sometimes you'll see on Instagram or something like, oh, this agency's SS26 package. And you see like a slideshow of 25 faces or something like that. And it's just, I would think that it's just the work that they put into promoting those models for that season.
That's why they take 20%
graphic
or a percentage,
designers.
whatever. I'm gonna have to unpack this later with an agent because I'm gonna go hard on that because that does not make sense why they would charge for their job. Like that's their job. Do you feel okay with that?
Oh, you can ask to not be included in the show package and you'll still go to castings.
But the show package is basically like, hey, I'm a modeling agency, and here are all of our best models in town that are available to be cast for the runway shows, and it's like exclusive. It's like a promo, like a
Usually the show
exclusive
package is
promo.
a great way to show the new faces. They're not really seen, people don't really know them so much in the industry for someone to go and ask for that model, because some casting directors,
Yeah.
they are going to the agency and saying, I want this model, this model, this model, this model. The show package is like, okay, here are 25 models that they're saying they're here, they're new. What do you think of them?
Yeah, that just I don't know why they would charge for that, but whatever. So okay, we were talking though about why someone would come to Paris to make money here if 70% of what they earn is going to be stripped away from them. A model will come here, break even, all their expenses will be taken care of. So what is the benefit then? If a model is asking you, hey, should I come to Paris? What's the benefit?
So the reason why everyone does Fashion Week at the end is it is a big boost to your career. And what it's going to do is when you go back to New York, LA, clients are going to look and be like, okay, they've done this many shows potentially, especially if you've opened or closed, and your rate can go up because you've established yourself a bit more in the industry. You're a bit more professional, especially if you're consistently doing it, versus someone who's only kind of really doing e-com and has only really ever done e-com. The public is seeing you more in a way where this big brand is associated with your name. Maybe you'll get the campaign after for the same brand. Maybe you'll do the lookbook after, but it really is just a
Building.
PR thing to boost your career.
Just like to, which kind of makes sense. It's like, hey, like go there, build your name more, come back so we can increase your rate and stuff, and you'll be perceived as more of like a higher quality, higher end model. Are you on models.com?
Yeah. I didn't really understand how I was put on models.com in the beginning. One day, my Italian agency just called me and said, like, you have a models.com. Here's the password. Update it as much as you want. One way you can do it is, I think you have to pay a fee.
Has it helped you in any way being on models.com?
I mean, not that I know of. I mean, it might have. My agencies probably would know that if something has come up from that, but directly no one has contacted me to say like, oh, I seen your models.com.
Like you don't have it as linked. You don't have it as a link on your bio on Instagram.
No, probably not for like the last 4 years.
Is it cool? Is it like a thing that only like new models care about, and then after a while you kind of just get over it?
Well, it is good to at least have the agency where you're based in your bio, I would say, and maybe where you work a lot. But when you're younger, you have pretty much every agency and the links attached to your bio. And sometimes when it comes to someone looking at your page or something, it can look a bit messy to have. If you're represented by one person internationally, fair enough. But if you have different agencies in different places and you have a list of 15 names in your bio on Instagram, it starts to look a bit jumbled. So it's easier to sometimes just put, here's who represents me, and it's fine. A lot of clients, sometimes they're not gonna need like look at like, oh, he did all of this, because it can be conflict of interest if this brand doesn't want to work with this brand, or just that. And sometimes just having them go straight to the agency and seeing either your portfolio and the things that your agency is presenting can be beneficial.
Like within the market that you're currently in.
Yeah, because you can't work sometimes with, there are models who have done it, but there are brands where when you've worked with the one, this brand is not going to book you because you've worked directly with their competition. But sometimes they won't look that far into you, and usually it's like once it's past like 3 years, it's fair game. Yeah, it's just sometimes it helps because they'll see, oh, you did this one, so we don't want him to work with us.
But I mean, do brands care if they see a models.com link in your bio and like, oh my gosh,
Oh, it can
he's
go
on
well.
model.com.
I mean, especially when you think of the models who have been listed as top 100, top 50, models.com really helps for the industry vote, the insider vote. And when it comes to big editorials, big photographers, stuff like that, yes, sometimes they are looking at models.com and seeing, do I want to work with this person? Who is the up and coming new face? Who is showing out a lot? And models.com can help with that a lot of, oh, they've done this many campaigns this season, so you look like a hot commodity. So there are benefits to models.com.
What agencies are you signed with, like worldwide?
So I think currently I'm with, well, it's just, I hope I get all of them.
Start with the US.
So we have Maryland in New York, and we have Photogenics in LA. In Canada, my manager, his name is Peggy Lepage, and I'm with Ledru in Toronto and Together in Montreal. South Africa, I'm with my friend Ned. Paris, I'm with Marilyn. Spain, I'm with Francina. London is Wilhelmina. Germany is Viva. Seoul is Ever. So the only markets that I haven't worked in is South Africa.
And you're signed there?
I signed there a while ago, but I haven't been there. For me, I had the opportunity to also be signed in Australia, but South Africa and Australia both are very long flights.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just feels really far.
Do you ever plan on going to South Africa or Australia?
Oh, probably South Africa, Australia. I'd have to think about it. It just seems very dangerous environmentally.
Oh, I would love to go to Australia, except I don't know that I can survive the flight there.
Yeah, the 17 hours is heavy. And this is the whole thing, is like once you're there, you have to
Stay there.
dedicate like 3 months to make 17 hours worth it.
Right.
Or it's just like, you're not going to do a week, 17 hours. You basically cut out 2 days just flying.
Right. So you've been here for almost 3 years. What are some interesting cultural differences you would say about French people versus Americans? Especially working in fashion, the people that you interact with, photographers, agents, versus how they are in the United States.
I'd say people here are maybe a bit more dialed back, where even though people can assume like it can be intense or whatever, like at the end, like it's culturally like
You do pop out with an accent every now and then. Like,
it's known here though that like people prefer to enjoy their time. Like they don't want to work 24 hours a day like New York, where everyone is like, what's the next project? What's this? Like people enjoy their free time here.
that is true. They don't start opening up their restaurants here until like 11 a.m. And I'm like, I'm hungry. Where's breakfast?
Then 6 it's done, and the holidays is that, and you try to change anything and they're gonna strike. But people here do like to have like a social life and take things easy.
What does that mean, and how does that translate into the people you interact with who work in fashion?
Okay, so the way they're relaxing is, it's still in fashion, because basically like you hang around the people that you work with or in your similar industry, because that's who talks together, that's who complains together, that's who understands you. And Paris is small enough that you're not going to go far without seeing another person in fashion. So even though you're relaxing, it's kind of networking, because you're maintaining your relationships. And again, they are people who are working with you or in different aspects of fashion that you can possibly have work with later.
So they're just like more carefree, or they're just more like, we're not always about business 100% of the time. Like, let's...
Yeah, it's not that they're carefree. They're just like, they're not going to bleed for the company. They're going to still take time for themselves.
Got it. And then how does that translate though when you work with a photographer or an agency? Like, are they answering emails after 5 p.m.? Like, are people in a state of urgency, maybe compared to like people in the United States?
So Paris does happen really quick. So a lot of times bookers, especially during Fashion Week, bookers are going to stay later, or there will be 1 or 2 people in the office that stay maybe till 8 p.m., something like that, when typically they get off at 6. But even when they get home, you still check your email every now and then. It's just you're not sitting in front of the laptop. Jobs can come up last second, and if you don't give the client a response within 12 hours, they might have just picked whoever responded first. Just because they've done something so last second that they need the answer now.
Now, in terms of like how you build relationships with people here in Paris, like what are some things that you've learned? Like, do you guys go out and smoke? Do you just go get some food? Like, what is the state of like, okay, there's this casting director that's here, or this designer. How do I schmooze with them or connect with them to get on their radar?
So I don't really smoke. And I'm sure like a lot of people who are not from Europe don't smoke as much, they're vaping, but it's a different problem. In Paris, you kind of need to hang around the smoking areas still, because it's where people talk. Everyone is socializing in the smoking area. And if you're not doing that, there's always an event. There's always something in fashion that's going on. Some brand is hosting something where you can meet people, and there are a couple places that are known that the fashion community kind of hangs out with at night, because honestly, Paris, similar to New York, is kind of like a nightlife city, just in a different way.
Where are those areas in Paris that like people gather in fashion?
In most countries, they will say it's oversaturated, but in the French Soho House, a lot of bookers, directors, casting directors, designers, they'll go there. They'll just sit, they work from there because it's a lounge that they can work on their laptop through the day. It's not like completely oversaturated with people who are not really in the community like other countries.
So French Soho House?
Yeah, the French Soho
What about
House.
like party places, venues? Like where's all the...
For clubs and party places, there's like Serpent Plume, La Fête, Montana, Silencio, which I know they've just opened one in New York. These are typical places where a lot of people in fashion will go to socialize, hang out, because mostly an event is going on there once a week at least, where it's fashion based.
Do you find yourself very social here?
I'm not a super social person, but in Paris, I do go out 2 to 3 times a week to see people that I know.
What's your like day-to-day look like here in Paris?
I mean, I go to the gym, cook, go to text my agency at least twice a week, sometimes pop by once every 2 weeks. Then I will try to make plans with someone and go around the city, or see friends. Very normal if I'm not working. When you are working or doing castings, because castings here are a bit different than most countries where there are requests, there's not so many open calls.
It's like everywhere else though.
Yeah,
That's what I hear.
No one wants to see 2,000 people anymore. Like,
except for Fashion Week apparently, because
even then, like 8 years ago, you'd do this big open call. Now only a couple brands will do it.
yeah, which doesn't make any sense to do these big open calls. Because like, what's the point of selecting all these faces? You could probably tell half of them immediately off of their like digitals.
For sure.
They probably do it just for show, huh?
Well, also what it does is it kind of throws the whole day off, because then you'll sit at an open call casting. Some models will do it, and it will be 5 hours of your day gone because every model is there, versus a request where, yeah, it's still a lot that are going to be at the request, but it will be maybe 100, 200 people.
Which is interesting, because as that continues to be a thing, there's going to be less opportunities for models to really like see each other, which is why I think then my model mixers will be a cool place for models to connect outside of just like your traditional events and stuff.
Oh, for sure. I think it is good to have events and spaces for models to know to hang out, because what happens, especially if you're not new, where you're not living in model flats anymore, is you only will hang out with who you already know or who you meet while you're out. You're not going to really go out of your way to try to meet new people in castings or in the day, because you're just trying to do your job and go home. Mm-hmm. You're not really there to make friends with your competition. So I think like model mixers and stuff could be cool in a way where it is a space where like-minded people will be, whether it's a model, a casting director, a scout, just people who have a interest and who live in the industry. They'll have a space to do that versus being kind of isolated to who you live with.
Right. What did you think when you saw the Model Mixer London? What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, the first thing I noticed was the yell from the rooftop. Very rock star based. But the turnout was, honestly, it seemed really crazy. I was assuming like 100 people something gonna show up, and then you had that like a line down a couple streets. I assume you didn't fully have time to have like in-depth conversations with everyone who was there, because there was just so many people. And obviously from it you see like the personalities, who catches your eye quickly, and I think for scouting you weed out who wants to do it and who can do it.
Right.
But also, even if it's not necessarily for you to model, by going to things like this, you can find other access points to the industry. Of you could be a designer, you could be a stylist, you could be a makeup artist, you could be a creative director. There's so many other ways that you could connect with people and just build off of that.
You've been modeling for 10 years, so have you ever seen anything like this before?
Not a model mixer so much. I mean, back when they used to do Into every once in a while, I think they'd have something that I was skipping.
Wait, Into it?
Like Into, it used to be like an app where these models you'd go on Instagram, you take a picture of the place, you post the place, you'll eat for free, you'll get a free massage, free something, free publicity basically. But yeah, it used to be an app before the
never heard of that before.
Pandemic. There was Into and Models Club.
Interesting. I've never heard of that before. But that wasn't like where a bunch of people gathered into one space.
No, it was very rare that something like that would happen. Typically, there were not really mixers, especially that reached a broad amount of models. Typically, if models wanted to meet each other, it would be Fashion Week, and this brand or that brand would be throwing a party, and you'd appear to it if you found out to it.
As a signed model of 10 years, would you ever attend Brandon Andre's Model Mixer?
Well, I know you, so yeah, I'd pop by.
But like, if you didn't, right? Like, do you think that? Because I mean, I want to make it a space where models that are signed come through, not just people who are aspiring to be signed. What would draw you as a sign? Or what do you think would draw all your model friends to an event like that you saw?
I think one thing for signed models that kind of has to be the place is, what are they going to get from this, or who can they meet and connect with? Because, you know, they're working already. Unless they're trying to re-sign or find new management, is there going to be photographers there? Is there going to be stylists that they can bump into? Because knowing models is great for fun, and for friends, but they're not going to do much to make you more money.
Well, this is my argument. If someone was to ask me that, I would say, well, you can meet with other models to start creating content and actually start growing your audience on social media. So if you approach it from a brand building process, it is a smart thing to come to, because not only will you build a brand by gaining all of these people that are there who will follow you because you're what they're aspiring to be, but if other models go, then you guys can connect with each other and start creating content, and the exposure you get from creating content will actually get you more jobs. So being seen and visible, I think, is extremely important, and there's not many options to do that in modeling outside of those major events, especially because my model mixer events, they're not at night, and that's very intentional because I want it to be a day thing where music isn't super loud and you can't actually connect or communicate to people, which forces people to actually have to talk to each other. So that's a very intentional thing. Daytime, and then also it's helpful for like lighting and be able to see different model faces. But it's kind of like the whole point of like the model mixer. So like, yes, right now in the beginnings, it's like it started off as a model meetup with like people online who follow me, who want to be models and create content. And now I want it still to become that. It's like a pathway for people to like get scouted and get signed. But also I want it to attract signed models who want to build a brand and who want to like kind of innovate with how things are moving and being able to connect with other people, connect with me, and obviously attract photographers, obviously attract other people in the industry and stuff. And so that's kind of the plan, the next phase of this, which I'll eventually do one in Paris. But I'm just curious to see like what you from social media, because that's how we connected. And remind or tell the audience like how you came to know who I am.
Me and my manager were looking at your TikToks and sending them between each other, because it's rare in the industry to see someone or to have an honest opinion of what the industry actually is, because with everything right now you kind of have to be a bit PC, but it's not the industry really for that. Like there is a limit to it and a limit of what everyone can accept, but at the end of the day it's still a business. You need to fit certain molds, you need to go into your box, you need to be told like sometimes the hard truth, not only so that you don't waste your time, but so you can know how to market yourself or actually do your job.
And then you guys saw it, and then I contacted you on TikTok because he actually does what I tell everybody to do: put a fire profile picture so that if you're trying to get scouted, you can actually get scouted. And I saw your profile picture. I was like,
I think that's all there's there.
Yeah, that's all he has too. And I was like, he looks like a model. And then do you have any content on your TikTok?
Just a photo, I think, one photo.
And then I was like, yo, are you... I don't even know. I think I asked you where you based, and then you gave me like Canada. I don't know. I was like, "Are you in Paris?" And when he's in Paris, I was like, "Oh, are you signed?" Oh, because I asked you, "Are you
asked
signed?"
me where am I signed, and I gave you a list.
Yeah. And then I was like, "But are you going to be in Paris?" I don't know how I felt like you were in Paris. I don't know if you said something or whatever, but it ended up working out that you were here, and he's been super helpful connecting me with a bunch of people here in the limited amount of time that I've been in Paris, and I'm going to be in Paris
This time.
This time, yeah. But which is cool because it's like laying the foundation of like what I'm going to be building throughout Europe while I'm doing these trips and stuff. But yeah, like seeing your perspective and hearing from your experience and all that, I think is like very important to figure out how I'm going to build this, like whatever this thing is that I'm building. So cool. Hopefully you'll be around when I do the Paris one. Now, in terms of money and opportunity, like for models to make money in modeling in Paris, what's your experience been? You've been doing this for 10 years. You're 26 years old. What do you predict happening the next 5 years? And then in terms of money, are you making a lot of money as a male model?
I mean, it goes up and down, depends on the season always, and if I'm in the right market at the right moment. So sometimes to be in one place is not always beneficial because, again, there are seasons where Europe is good. Like, say a model comes to Paris for summer and they decide they're going to do 3 months. July and August, no one's here. Like the city's closed, it's too hot. Not only here, but Milan, Spain, London, they're all closed. Just that's when they go on holiday. So go to America, go to Asia, there will be more stuff going on. In most of Europe, August, they do get a 4-week holiday. So everyone is just off. So they just enjoy themselves.
Weather seems to be a big thing in fashion, by the way. Like New York is dead during the winter, or not dead, but harder to shoot in the winter. So that affects a lot of the types of campaigns you do. Miami is dead for most of the year. I think LA is pretty consistent.
You can be based in one place where it's, as I said, like before, Paris is where I stay, and I can go to Milan, go to Spain, go to London very quickly and even be back the same day or the next day. It's a lot easier to make money that way because you have more access versus when you're staying in one place and you refuse, because there are some models who refuse to fly. It becomes very hard to make money because a lot of clients want to shoot on location. So you might not be always in the same place, and you have to know where to go and what season and how the market is at that time, because some markets become dead. Sometimes there's not as much going on in London or Milan or here or New York, where all the clients have just decided to move to a different place for that season. Or you have a shaved head, and in your country that shaved head isn't working, go to a country where it is working at that moment, and you will start to probably earn more. But if your goal is to make like a ton of money or to be like what is like rich from modeling,
Which is what number?
it's very rare. Maybe you're in the top 100, top 150, unless you're really like, what people are confused about, if you're killing ecom, doing ecom, some people do it 5-6 days a week. These models are very comfortable. They're doing it like it's a 9-to-5 job and it's a consistent pay versus models who just want to do fashion weekend campaigns, because those are rare. They're not often, you're not going to make the same amount consistently from that.
Like, what would you say is like you're making good money from modeling? What amount a year would you say?
I think to be a model, honestly, the rate depends on which country you're in and where you're going to be, basically. Like in New York, if you're not making 40 grand, you shouldn't be living there pretty much, because you can't survive in the city. So if you want to make good money as a model, you should be able to comfortably live in the city and not be struggling, not be in any way stressed about finances. Yeah, sometimes there can be a season where that happens, but you need to look at the overall of, I'm working enough to have a comfortable life, to put a little bit in savings, to invest something. Because
What number is that though?
for which country?
In New York.
For New York, the minimum is like 40 grand. If ideally, you probably, to be comfortable, need to make around 90 to 100.
Okay. And then in Paris?
In Paris, you could probably get by with 20 on a minimum.
$20,000 a year?
Yeah, just because the rent isn't as expensive.
So that's like the 40K equivalent of...
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me think. I think when you make 6 figures, you're in the top 3%.
In Paris?
Yeah.
So like 100K?
Yeah, like if you're making 100K a year after the 70% is removed, you're pretty comfortable.
Do you know transparently the models that you are friends with, what they're like, what they actually make a year? Do you ever know? Do you ever discuss that?
With some friends. Some friends, they can make a lot. Like there's some models that you can make a couple $100,000 off of a campaign, depending on what you're doing. But again, it depends on the job. A campaign is once in a blue moon, and with a campaign, you're becoming the face of a brand where you have to consistently, usually when you're being paid that much, you will be the face of them for a bit, and you will have to go out and represent that brand. That's why also what you do by teaching models how to market themselves, they need to understand that sometimes they are representing the company that they work for, and getting that job that's paying that much, or being kind of like booked as an exclusive, you can't be seen in a reckless way because you are representing that company.
Like, what's the highest amount you've heard a model earn in a year? Total.
In a year? I don't know about a year.
Like, no one's ever told you total?
Not
like,
in a
hey,
year.
this year I made
I know
X amount
based
of
on
dollars.
like the highest per job, which was like a 500 grand car campaign, which is probably the most, but again, that is really, really rare. Usually the high of a job can be like 50 to 80.
Which is pretty good. Now, let me ask you this. If you feel comfortable saying, in the 10 years that you've modeled, what was your highest year and how much did you make in that highest year?
When I was super young, the first time I was really introduced to like making a good amount of money in a short time was, I think, like 45 days, and it was around 60 grand in my pocket.
What trip?
Japan.
Oh, wow.
Before. This was a while ago.
60 grand after
USD.
after
So
gross
they
income.
take, I think, about 50%, and that's what I got after.
So you made 120 in 2 months.
Yeah.
At what age?
17.
In Japan.
Yeah.
Wow. So that goes into another thing that I wanted to talk about. Your face. So let's talk about your look and how you feel as you've kind of gone about this industry that's played a role in the types of work that you've gotten. You're a pretty looking dude. You got blue eyes, dark hair, caramel skin. You're mixed.
Well, I mean, I'm black. Like, I'm half Jamaican, and then I'm white on my mom's side.
this is like the foundational thing that people always wonder. I'm pretty, therefore I should be a model.
No.
But how does this work for you? Like, because you would be considered like a prettier face, right? Youthful, pretty. You're not necessarily like super edgy in like high fashion regard, but you're conventionally attractive, but you are tall and you have the whole, because you're how tall?
187, so 6'1.5".
Okay. And you basically fit the profile for a fashion model, but have you found yourself being too pretty for certain jobs? What's been your experience with your look?
So obviously, like, when it comes to fashion, people think if you look good, you're going to be a model. It's not the case. You need to look interesting or have something distinctive, whether it's cheekbones. Honest, in Europe, it's pretty much like, do you fit the sample sizes? And that's what we can go off of. Yes, in a way. Especially when I was younger, there were shows that I would do where someone would pull me aside and they're like, we need you to look really angry because you're a bit prettier than the other models we look, so you need to do more to fit with them. And for me, I was just like, models are models. Like, what's the different at that point? But for fashion shows, you kind of want a consistent look. And when it comes to commercial modeling, you can be probably more conventionally attractive and usually more in shape, a prettier face, prettier features versus what people kind of consider like weird when they see like a model and they're like, why is this person modeling? Like, they're a bit strange, but they're unique and people don't look like them. So that's what draws you to them. It's like with pictures, sometimes it's the imperfection that makes the photo look nice. There's something about that person that's going, and pretty people, they don't model as much. It's like in America, you have like a big pageant culture. Almost no one who wins pageants becomes a model because they're listed as pretty, not
Interesting.
unique or interesting.
Do you think you're pretty?
Mostly.
Mostly?
No, I have a bad ego sometimes.
You have a bad ego sometimes?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, off of camera.
Well, no, I mean, I've just been talking to you and I haven't seen your ego. I guess we'll find out.
It used to be worse.
We'll see the comment section when people when on our model off video thing.
No, it used to be worse.
Who do you think did better? Did you feel who did better in front of the camera in our little competition?
Oh, I mean,
Do you think you won or do you think I won?
You probably won.
Oh wow!
When it comes to phone
Content,
I don't really. The framing is odd for me.
Really?
Yeah, I prefer like a film or digital camera.
Nice. We did like a new content that I'm doing called a model off, where we both model at the same time, and the people in the comment section will decide who won. So you think that if you weren't as pretty but more edgy, you would what do you think would be different in your career?
Well, to an extent, which is again, I still believe I would work. Not because again, I'm not basing it off of my face. It's the silhouette. Especially the way I started, very tall, lean, kind of basically a skeleton. Because in France, they still don't say models, they say mannequins and before they were called hangers because they just want the clothes to hang off of you. They're not really trying to have you fill out the clothes or anything. They just want to see the clothes as best as they can. So it's really about the frame of you. Are you tall enough? Do you fit the sample sizes? How does it look on you? Your legs aren't too big that the jeans look tight. It's different brands. So different brands go for different looks. Obviously, there are the commercial brands that like pretty, like Abercrombie & Fitch, Guess, very commercial brands. And if you want a longer career in modeling, you should at some point transition from fashion to commercial, because fashion is really for young people. When you're older and you're doing fashion, it's kind of either you still really look like a baby or you had success at that point to where you've built a big enough name where they're like, oh, we're going to book this model because he did so well when he was at that age. Or, now everything's broader. You'll see models 75 walking the runway. I mean, they were superstars when they were modeling. They're not new models, but it's a different time.
Well, you're 26 now, so where do you think what's going for you? Like, what do you think?
1 foot in the grave.
1 foot in the grave. That's crazy. Yeah, like where do you think it goes for you? Like, do you think you're going to be transitioning into, because you still seem pretty young, so do you feel like you're going to transition into like older, young 30-year-old model look, or you think you're going to be a pretty boy for the next foreseeable future? Do you think you're just going to, what's next for you?
It's kind of hard to tell because you kind of have to see how you age. And the way you age, like some people, age hits them like a brick. Some people, it happens slowly. And what happens, especially when you're nearing the older 20s, because before modeling was like, you were done fashion at like 23 before some rules changed. Once you're reaching the older 20, yes, to an extent, you should be not only going to the gym to be lean, but to put on some weight so you can change to the commercial jobs, because the fashion brands, they're still seeing the youngest people. Of course, they're going to want young people, unless like you've been like you're really, really interesting to them. And
Or famous.
Yeah, pretty much those two things, hand in hand. But yeah, once you're getting older, if you want to continue to do it, you do what you can to keep in the market. Yeah, you're not going to be doing Celine anymore because Celine's size is not going to fit that frame of someone of that age. But you find the brands that are working with bigger, like more of a lifestyle type look or more of a commercial look, kind of more of a Miami image.
Have you modeled Miami?
No.
Do you care to?
We'll see. Swim week seems fun.
Do you feel like you're scared of turning 30?
No. Honestly, I'm a lot more comfortable turning 30 than turning 28.
Does it help when you see me and that I'm 32 and I don't
But I
look
didn't
32?
think you were 30. No, honestly, I feel like 30 is like your 20s with money.
That's exactly what I tell people.
Like
yes.
you're comfortable, like
Especially when you look young.
because 20s is not your 20. 20 is like when you hit like 21, 22, it's like you've been an adult for 2 years. You're a child, but you have responsibilities now. So once you get to 30, you kind of have things somewhat figured out and you're comfortable. Everything's kind of simpler, especially if, you use sunscreen. It works.
Yeah. Do you use sunscreen?
Yeah, it's mandatory. But yeah, once you're older, I don't find it to be that scary, but I think turning 25 and the ages between 25 and 30 are way more stressful because you're just like,
Freaking out.
it's such a change of being the youngest to being like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
not a kid, but I have kid feelings.
Once you turn 30, all that fades away and you realize that there's nothing scary. I mean, look at me. I'm planning a world tour to Europe at 33 next year. Well, no, 30. Yeah, I'll be 33 next year. And I'm like, I didn't expect this to happen at this age of my life. So, and social media has changed everything too. Now we're going to transition into a segment that I'm calling Photographer Red Flag Stories. Do you have any photographer red flag stories? Anything you've experienced with a photographer or even just anyone in the industry that was just like, that's weird.
So when I have 1,000 red flag stories, but
Oh yeah, and you probably would experience a lot more of that because
Yeah.
pretty boys tend to experience more of that than anything else. So
honestly, like there are a lot of red flags that go on in every industry, but obviously this is a public one, so we talk about it when it happens. But I mean, yeah, many stories, but I can remember
The worst one.
where it's probably not the worst, but when I was like 16 or 17 and I had an option to shoot with like a really, really massive photographer, and even I wasn't fully aware of like what was wrong or anything, but they're like, if you book it, we're going to send someone to go with you. You're going to have a team. You're going to be with them at all times. You're never going to be alone with the person. And I was really confused at like, what are we talking about? Like, I can take care of myself. I don't need like a chauffeur. And then comes out years later that they're like blacklisted because of a couple incidents.
what's the worst red flag story that you have?
There's one incident where there is an agency in one country that before they were saying, oh, they want to sign me and everything. And I told my agent, like, oh, I don't want to sign with them. And she was always like, why don't you want to sign with them and anything? And eventually I told her what happened, and it was like I was drunk, and the booker kept trying to either like make a pass or touch me or like do a move because I was
Intoxicated.
yes, but also I was 17. So
17, oh my
I was
gosh.
not of age or anything like that.
That was a Japanese booker?
No. I was only in Japan for 2 months. They're very safe and kind there.
So this happened in what country?
This was in Europe. Not my agency at the time, a
Right.
different one. But yeah, I remember this. And for me, I mean, I've always like been able to manage myself very well, and I understand boundaries, but for a lot of people they can't, and they don't, especially when you come from a smaller country, they don't really know how to say no.
Navigate, yeah. Well, that's the other fear, like, of Americans coming, especially boys, like, well, and girls too, but like coming to a country that they don't know the language, not understanding what the like nuances are, how someone is talking, what their actually intentions are with that. So that's kind of why I think this is important to start bringing up with models that I interview. Like, hey, what are your red flag stories from working in the industry in a different country? You don't speak French, you know. What about brands? Have you ever been put in a compromising position or situation?
Not on set, not through bookings or anything, but of course, sometimes after the job, you can get a text that's a bit pushy or flirty or like provocative. That can happen after. But as on set, not so much.
How do you shut it down when you have in the past?
I mean,
Like, because I think something that a model might think is like,
you do need
how do
to
I
do it in a professional
yeah,
way.
like, how do I shut this down without ruining an opportunity? You know, because you've heard a lot of male
Well,
models.
thankfully, it was after we shot and I
Right.
was paid.
Well, I mean, but you know, you want to be brought back for that
Yeah.
gig, right? So the question that I think that I've heard over the times that I've been doing this since 2010, so for 14 years, there's a saying among male models that in order to make it to the top, you have to do something gay in order to get there. So do you think that that's true? And like everyone that you know, what do you think most male models you know would say to that expression or saying?
They're all a lot of them will say that like they've heard a story or they know someone or something like this, which it's not the best, but there's a difference of sometimes where it's, of course it's workplace, so people would tie it to inappropriate, but sometimes not a lot of the time, sometimes the model is the one
Initiating.
provoking the situation to try to push themselves higher.
And you've heard of that? You've heard of
Yeah.
instances? Can you give me an example without naming names of what that would look like?
There is certain markets where it's flat out in the contract, models will not go on dates with clients because it has happened a lot. Typically, it's certain countries that lean into it more. Again, not everyone, but certain demographics where maybe they were really young and they were explained to do something in a different way to boost their career, to try to become number one or anything. But
Because I'm trying to make sure, or I'm trying to clarify if this is something that you've heard and that you've seen a lot, because you've been modeling. I'm sure you have a lot of model friends, so you've heard a bunch of stories, I'm assuming. How accurate is this, though, in the industry for male models?
I mean, when you see a boat trip and there's no campaign being shot, it's a bit fishy. Basically, there are situations where you'll see it and you kind of know because you see it and it's very clear what's going on, where it's not even a question of like, oh, so who's shooting it? There's no photographer there. So why is this on everyone's Instagram? Why are we here? Because it's very rare. Like before, it's like nothing in life it's free. So why are you being brought here to be around these people? For what reason? Like you're not shooting anything. You're not producing anything. Like it's just for fun. If you're a certain age, why do you want to have fun with like 18-year-olds?
Would you say then that for the most part, your experience as a model has been fairly like normal? You haven't had any weird experiences, been taken advantage of?
I definitely haven't been taken advantage of. I mean, passes have been made, but people have been very respectful. But also, I can thank my manager for that, because if I'm confused, I can always explain to her. And whenever I've explained, like, she can handle it for me. When I was younger, now it's fine. But, like, I can deal with it myself. But I think the problem is like, a lot of people are super young and they don't know how to navigate that kind of situation.
How to like shut things down and stuff. Okay, cool. Well, we have a photo shoot to do. Are you ready for it? How you feeling?
Awake.
Awake? Yeah.
No, it's gonna be super cool. I mean, it's like why I see your work. I believe in it. That's why I wanted to connect you with people.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Yeah, we're gonna do a couple of looks, go about the city, and see if we can get some really cool, strong editorial looking shots and make it happen. But I wanted to do this podcast with you first because I wanted to hear kind of your story, your perspective of what it looks like to model in Paris. So thank you for coming on, and good job.
Thanks for listening to today's show, and don't forget to hit that follow button to be in the loop when a new episode drops. Be sure to check out my model masterclass by visiting my website, brandonandrephoto.com, or by clicking the link in my bio on Instagram at @thebrandonandre.